Hello everyone, thank you once again for joining me for March Sadness. Today we are talking about an album that I never see mentioned, and that is Life Lessons by Handguns. For this whole series I tried to pick albums that I have some emotional attachment to, so if it makes the list it's either in my constant rotation or at some point I was spinning this record to death. When Life Lessons came out, I listened to this album constantly. I didn't know it was being panned by the few places that reviewed it. I didn't know whether or not audiences liked it. All I knew was that I was connecting with it. And at the time, I didn't like Handgun's previous work. I absolutely loathed and still don't like Angst. And the album that followed this, Disenchanted, I wasn't a huge fan of either. You know, maybe I'm just not a fan of Handguns. Life Lessons, though, despite being by-the-book pop-punk trite, still makes me smile. You could comment below that this album is trash, and I wouldn't blame you at all. Perhaps that's even why I never see this album mentioned, because it's mid and the band is mid, and it deserves to be lumped with all of the other releases in 2014 that aren't worth remembering. But you know, on this channel we're allowed to have our guilty pleasure albums, and for me, Life Lessons is an album that I still like, warts and all. It starts off decent enough with the song Anvil. A quick and punky track that showcases Taylor's more dynamic vocals than he had on Angst. But if you hate the vocals here, you might as well stop at track 1, because that's about as good as it gets. From there, it's 4 pretty weak tracks in a row, but each of them has at least something redeeming about them. Sleep Deprived has a cool chorus delivery, but boring lyrics. Highway Robbery is almost indistinguishable from Sleep Deprived. And Heart vs. Head has a decent first half of a chorus and an outro, but boring lyrics. And I Can't Relate had a decent chorus delivery, but some brutally ham-fisted lyrics. So that's the whole first half of the album. Nothing much to write home about. And I'm starting to realize why maybe this album doesn't get talked about very much. It's side B where the album finally comes to life. The Loved Ones Who Hate Us still feels very fresh on this album. Taylor really finds his voice here. The snark and anger seem more genuine than anything else that we've heard so far. I actually think Taylor outshines the Dan Campbell feature on this song. Queens is another solid one. I still really love this chorus, but honestly I liked this more when I couldn't understand the lyrics. I actually took the time to read along while listening to this one. Made this song a little worse. Give and Take is terrible. The whoa whoa whoas, the lyrics, ugh. But the softer vocals and drum fills at the end are kind of redeeming for it, I guess. The final 2 songs finally have some heart. They're simply said, sure, but the experience feels very real and very impactful. The stupid whoa whoa whoas are still there, unfortunately. Almost every song starts with some kind of guitar intro, but Waiting for Your Ghost has my favorite one on the record. But the final track, New Year's Resolutions, is easily my favorite song on Life Lessons. It's more about forgetting the past than looking into the future, but its message of letting go is packaged nicely as Taylor goes from a signature whiny high pitch to something a little more mid-ranged. And I have to mention this, 17 days into March Sadness, how many albums end with the idea of letting go? Nobody ever accused this genre of being too original, I suppose. The final chant that closes out this album almost convinces me that this song and this album altogether had something more meaningful to say. It does such a good job of that I almost forget how much I dislike the first half of this record. So that's the first album that I've revisited that doesn't hold up to the 10 out of 10 I still love it standard. I still like it. I'm glad I got to revisit it. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of March Sadness. Hope to see you tomorrow where we're talking about a masterpiece, and here's the rest of the schedule. I'll see you then.